Thank you so much. We're good, we're good. For a minute, she was wondering where's the voice coming from. Can I have the mic on, please? Can you get the volume a little higher? Check. All right. So, lovely panelists. I know you guys are doing some side talk and wondering what the hell is he doing in the audience. But in the spirit of VUCA, just a couple of minutes ago, I was thrown at VUCA. So I thought maybe do something different and come on the side of the audience and ask the real questions, which are the real difficult questions, right? Most of the panels that I have been on or I have heard of have been scripted panels. You know what scripted panels are? Yeah? Where the questions are given to the panelists in advance. Yeah, politicians, wow, I like that. People are speaking up right now. Yeah, so the questions are given in advance and the speakers prepare the answers and they say wonderful things and we all enjoy it, right? But I think so our esteemed panel here doesn't require all of that because with the kind of experience that they have, I think we're going to get the best out of them. And it is up to all of us in the audience to ask them fantastic questions where they can share their experience with us and each one of us can learn a lot from them. So before I get into individual questions, let me quickly, we've had a great round of introduction. If I can request Mr. Ray, why don't you just start off in that order, each one of us telling each one of us the basics. What, according to you, would the future of work entail, right? 3 bullet points, extremely crisp. The beauty is the person who goes first gets the first mover advantage. And as we move all the way to Mehul, unfortunately, you will not be able to repeat any point that has already been said. Yeah. So we're going to make it fun, we're going to make it interactive, we're going to make it a lot of learning. And of course, it is not scripted, so it is VUCA in its truest form. Mr. Ray, over to you, sir.
One option with me, not to say any point, so that Mehul get the chance. But to me, actually, this VUCA or whatever you can call, this was there with the society. It is nothing new for me. When at the time industrial revolution came, that was also VUCA, in a way or other. So we have to live with uncertainties and we have to prepare ourselves for that. And to make the people redundant is no-brainer. So how to really carry the people in my organization, in a limited way I am speaking of, and to make them compatible to work with the changes what is happening, that's the challenge and that should be the focus. Only one point.
Fantastic, short and sweet, just the way we like it. Mr. Kazim, over to you.
Hello, is it working?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
Great. So to my mind, there are 3 points. One is dealing with ambiguity, dealing with disruption, and for the people in HR fraternity and the line manager, championing the cause of people to pace with this change. I think these are top 3 things.
Sure. But if you just want to spend a minute and let me come back to you, how is this going to be different from what we've been doing in the last 10 years? Is the intensity going to increase? Is the complexity going to increase? What's your take?
See, if you look at this world of industrialization, it goes back to 400 years. And if you look at the pace of change has actually taken place in the last 20-25 years. But what we see now is the disruption is going to be far more. And I think the pace of change will be very, very rapid. And I think that the rate of obsolescence of talent also is going to increase manifold. So I think it is the pace of change, obsolescence of talent, and how do we pace it up? Because just to bring a point home where I was coming in from, see today I am a very strong believer that the company A doesn't compete with the company B in terms of product or services. Right? If you go and buy a car, be it Honda or Toyota, is by and large the same. But I think what makes company A superior to company B is the set of critical talent the organization hold, which can pace the change faster than the competition and can derive that extra benefit to the customer. So I think that is what makes the difference.
Fantastic. Let's move on to Mr. Mishra.
Hello. Yeah. So I've just scribbled down a couple of things. So when we're talking of future of work, I think it's important that we need to look at what would be the future employee, what would be the future employer, and what would be the future workplace. But most importantly, what are the forces fundamentally which is, kind of pushing or fueling this kind of change? So these are four forces, I would say. One would be the technological change. So all those eminent speakers who spoke in the course of the day, there's a rapid technological development which is happening. So that's one thing which is pushing for a change. The second is the growing demand for skills. Now it's no longer a degree, it's no longer a diploma, but how I am keeping pace with the change that's happening, acquiring new skills, reskilling or upskilling myself, and keeping pace with the change that's happening. So that's the second one. The changing employee expectations. Now, employees are flexible. So they don't want to remain confined in an office or in a workplace. They rather would get connected from anywhere and everywhere. They're available 24/7, but yes, they're not willing to get bound to a workspace. The fourth important one is definitely the transitioning of work, which is, remote working, working on project basis, not necessarily a full-time, flexible working, and delivering works through complex partnership. So the platforms, the digitization is actually helping employees to work from anywhere and yet delivering results. So I think these are the four fundamental forces which is kind of, or rather I would say would be very, very decisive to build a future of work.
Superb. Thanks, Susam. Let's move to Mr. Ghosh.
Hi. Now, for us, I'm representing APJ Surendra Group. Now, it is a conglomerate where we have, two difficult businesses that we are currently in. One is shipping and one is tea plantations. Now, the future of work, if I see, there are two things which comes to my mind. One is the analytics. The HR analytics or the analytics for any matter. That's going to play a very important role. People need to be more aware of what is happening inside as well as outside. The pace at which the changes are happening, the technological advancement, people need to be aware. The employees need to be taken to the level where they can agree to those changes and adapt to those changes. So for me, this is very important. The analytics is going to play a very important role, either for HR or for otherwise industry as a whole.
All right. So let's move from Mr. Ghosh on the stage to Mr. Ghosh in the audience. Life doesn't get easy, right? Why should only they be in the spot? So Mr. Ghosh,
yes, please.
what all do you recall of what has been said thus far?
VUCA.
Fantastic.
So, yes.
I told you, right? Has to be both side participation.
Yes.
Yeah, so fantastic. Sorry to put you in a spot, but
I would love to.
wonderful. All yours.
So, yes. So, absolutely. Our eminent speakers, there's been, all of them have given that emphasis on the importance of the HR in the present VUCA world. Or I would rather say that HR should, there's been a transformation which HR should bring towards their own self along with the organization as a business HR. Or
Can I make life a little more difficult for you?
Yeah.
Bullet points, and they need to validate whether what you're saying is what they've covered or not.
Okay.
We mean business here, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you can go for it. Give us even 1 or 2 points enough. I don't need all the 9 points that were covered. Even 2 points, and they validate that this is exactly what they said, we'll pass the mic on.
Yes, I will try. So the first one is my favorite one, which is HR analytics. I think that
And that's called recency effect.
that has covered Ghosh, sir. The second one is the strategy, the HR strategy, or I'd rather say the competency building of the HR along with the skills. So this two is coming up right now in my mind.
Thank you so much. Sorry to put you on a spot. Thank you.
I would like to again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bachoria, all yours.
Yeah. Hi, I'd like to speak on the various researches which have been done, which paint a very, very bleak picture of a post-work world where we say that technology is going to take over all human jobs and human beings are going to be redundant. But I somehow feel that that is not true, and research has also shown that around 70 odd million jobs will be disrupted because of technology, but again 133 million jobs will be created. So of course, there will always be a place for human beings. Of course, the nature of work and the kind of work that we do will change. New roles like the genetic diversity officer or the algorithm bias auditor, they will definitely come up. But, and of course now artificial intelligence is making many human jobs redundant, but at the same time is creating new jobs as well. Now, we need to be a good AI parent. Artificial intelligence without human intervention can be totally biased, and to make it bias-free, we, along with the AI coder, in fact, a lot of research has gone in, and it has been shown that if we keep social scientists and philosophers alongside AI coders, then the result that we get is bias-free and much better. So that we need to be very, very careful that going forward, because after all, an algorithm is only as good as its coder. So of course, human beings have a lot more, other things, that they can do apart from, AI. Like, for example, the means of production is literally going into everybody's hands. Like a teenager sitting in Zambia can trade Yeezys on his phone, and a stay-at-home mom sitting in Zurich can sell custom-made jewelry on her phone that she has made while her child was sleeping. So this creates a lot more opportunities for wealth creation and distribution.
Fantastic. I think so you've covered the entire diaspora very well. Mehul, blow us away with your final thoughts.
Well, Sahil, till about 5 minutes ago, I was wondering why my set of questions haven't showed up. So I guess now I know why. You asked the question, what is VUCA, right?
What is the VUCA? What does the future of work entail?
What is the future of work? Frankly speaking, I don't think I have an answer for that. And that's because every morning when I wake up, it means something different to me.
Can you all give him a huge round of applause for that? For the sheer honesty to know that we really don't know what the future of work entails, because it's a shifting paradigm. Sorry, Mehul, yeah.
Yeah, so we've all spoken about disruptions. We've spoken about what's happening in old economy, new economy businesses. And when I see what's relevant to our company, and I'm old economy manufacturing, hardcore manufacturing company, we're working on multiple different projects today. We're working on IoT-led projects. We're working on Industry 4.0. And it reminds me of a time when in 2005, we were implementing SAP. We were one of the very early movers in the Eastern region to be implementing SAP, where from a resource perspective, just to get someone who could understand SAP and work on our system was a humongous task. We just, SAP resource was just not available in the Eastern region, let alone the country. And I see that same cycle happening to us again when we look at IoT initiatives and we look at Industry 4.0 initiatives. There is just a dearth of resources out in the market. And for me, that's a very, very scary thought. Our colleges, our institutes are still not equipped to have brought in these elements into their curriculum. And it's all left to us as corporates to take the initiative or the mantle of training our employees. And for me, that's one singular thing that keeps me awake all night if someone was to ask me. So, sorry, I can't break it down into 3 bullets, but for me, it's just a sum of parts. And if I could break down VUCA into 3 bullets, I think it wouldn't be VUCA.
I think you beautifully articulated it to really say that it is something which is beyond, but at the same time, we are grappling with it. And some of us are really, really making some good headways. So I think so in the last couple of minutes, we've actually experienced not only the positives, but also the so-called dark sides of what the future of work would entail. And Mohit, this one comes to you because Mehul, what we really do is start with you first now, Mehul. And let's get to this, right? So we've looked at the plus, we've looked at the not so good. But what really bothers me is, will the future of work actually help us stop running out of corporate scandals? Right? The intent is to say we are here today. The future is promising, the future is bright. We're doing a lot of work on tech, on analytics, on humanoids. But eventually, at the bottom of the pyramid, we are plagued by corporate scandals. So, Mehul, what's your take? Will the future of work help us stop running out of corporate scandals?
I think as long as there's an element of human intervention in anything that we do, scandals are here to stay. Because the moment you throw in the human element, scandals could be in different forms, different shapes. It doesn't necessarily have to be involved with integrity. It doesn't have to be always involved with any kind of governance issues. It could morph itself in different forms and shapes as time evolves. But yeah, I think I don't see a world where scandals. It's wishful thinking, but I don't see a world where, as long as there's an element of business and monetary gains and a human element to it, that scandals are going to go away.
Sure. Anyone else? Anything else to add? Do you feel differently about it?
I have a point that there cannot be any answer yes or no. It cannot be a situation where it will be scandal free.
Sure.
But in which direction we are moving, that's important.
Yeah.
So far, we will be more and more depending on technology, process, data. Data will be the king, and transparency definitely will come, and that will help to reduce, of course, to the extent. And another thing, I am extremely hopeful about the next generation.
Sure.
Because the way I was listening to you, the point of time, how much, frankly speaking, we were afraid of losing job at our young time, they are not.
Very true.
So they are much more upright, they can speak truth. So all these things, elements will add to the process, which might be we will be directing towards lesser of scandals.
Sure. Susam seems to be in a pensive mood. I'm going to let him take a couple of shots at that.
No, it'll be a short one. So I'll just say, as long as there is greed, there will be scandals. And also the other aspect we need to keep in mind, while technologically advancements are happening, right? Just to ensure accuracy, privacy, and stuff. But let's also understand and accept the fact that technology is accessible to everyone. The guy who's involved in the scandal or the guy who's wanting to protect the scandal. So the accessibility of technology will be there, right? So in my view, scandals will continue to happen, but yes, from the corporate perspective, what we can do, how foolproof your systems are. But as Mehul pointed out, there will continue to be human interventions.
Right.
So how foolproof my systems are, my securities are, just to minimize or reduce the scandals or the factors which kind of translate into scandals.
Right. The audience, while Mr. Kazim has a point to make, please note down your questions as well. I'm going to come back to you right away after this and take your questions to the panel as well. So please keep noting them down. Yes, Mr. Kazim.
See, I guess corporates of tomorrow would be known for corporate governance. And I think organization would like to stitch with such organization more, which we have seen also in the past. This bubbles will be there, here and there. But I think corporate governance is going to be the aim thing as we go forward, because the stakes are going to be very, very high. And if you look at beyond the statute, I think today people talk about, IQ and EQ, but I think the SQ is taking lead in this space. And I think a lot of focus at the board level is happening when we're looking at people who goes into the board, how high a person SQ quotient is. And I think this is something which will bring in more as time goes
Sure.
by.
Sure.
Thanks.
So, you have a point to make? Yeah, please.
In fact, I agree to Mr. Ray's point of view that the scandals would be there, but I think it will be minimized in the sense that if you see today's election, the number of young voters that is coming in and they are voting to Nota.
True.
It's not about negative voting. It's about you don't have any competent persons to vote for.
Yeah.
Then you are voting for Nota. So that means these people are honest, direct. So I think the scandals would definitely, with the corporate governance coming in, these scandals will definitely come down. As long as humans would be there would be errors can be there. But intentional, scandals that was happening in the past may not, Harshad Mehta may not happen again.
All right.
That was to my point exactly, that I feel scandals, they'll be uncovered much faster because of this huge technology that we have at our disposal, and with these surveillance economies that are there. And with these new tools, scandals would not go on, perpetuating, for years like it has been done, but they would be more short-lived, and hence the damage to that extent might be much lesser. But of course, technology has its flip sides too.
Sure.
So, it's easier to do things faster.
Correct. Anyone in the audience has a perspective that you want to share on corporate scandals in the future of work? Anyone? Yeah, right there. Can we have a mic that goes right across to the gentleman? Sir, if you could just stand up, he'll come across to you. Thank you. Please introduce yourself, your name, and then you can ask your question. If it's directed to anyone, if it's a question, if it's a perspective, please go ahead.
Yeah, so, hello. Yeah, I'm Girish, and it's a perspective. I was just thinking thinking aloud, wherein very small example like POSH, prevention of sexual harassment things. When these things gets reported now, it's not gets reported first to the police, which was always there, not to the judiciary system, again, which was always there, but on the Twitter, on the Facebook. So I think these corporate scandals or any kind of scandals were there, but going forward, reportings will increase because of the intervention of technology. That's my perspective.
Sure. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Right at the back, right on the third table, and then we'll go to the gentleman on the last row.
Good afternoon. My name is Iman Ghosh. One of the opportunities for scandals increasing moving forward is an accounting standard that we're about to adapt in India.
Right.
Mark to market instead of historical valuation of assets. Now, with mark to market, there are more opportunities for cooking the books, if you like. And I don't see much critical discussion around this issue. We are about to adapt this new accounting standard in India. I think it isn't going to be very good in terms of scandal reduction, if you like. There needs to be more discussion and compliance and around this issue. I mean, nobody's talking about it. I've raised this in a few places, and it's just not. So the problem with mark to market is that you value your assets on the current market value instead of the historical acquisition cost. And that is a problem because we tend to overvalue, let's say, real estate and other assets as they go up. But when the valuation of these assets decline, they're not reported that fast. So companies can overvalue their books, the valuations more easily. This is a problem that happened with some corporates in the past. It can happen a lot more.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Let's go to the gentleman on the last row. He just put his hand up for you, so you can identify him.
My name is Debashish Biswas. I think one of the fundamental aspect of what we use as the word scandal is the definition of the word itself correlates to the respective industries. What scandal to A may not look like a scandal to B, because it all starts with a small allowable mistake which somebody makes, which looks like a mistake, and then there are a couple of others who involve them in the process, and then it takes shape. I think we have still not been able to define, the corporate fraternity has not really put their heads together to define what do you mean as scandal, right? Anything which is out of proportion, it's typically the way it happens within 3 or 4 families in the same locality, wherein a kid's, some mistake looks like to be a big problem for the other family. So I think we need to get to the basics of defining scandal first, as to what is the definition of scandal. And it would be good to look at it from respective industries, the way they need to look at it. So possibly the way a scandal would be defined in manufacturing may not be the same way it's defined for FMCG. There would be 60 or 70% which could be common across all, which runs through and cuts across all industry segments. But that's something which is important. 2 is the empowerment of people starting from bottoms up to raise a flag when they see something which is not really seems comfortable. That enablement, that empowerment has to really come, and there possibly all the HR leaders who are sitting there can play a massive role. Currently, that empowerment is not there. Let's be honest about it, because while there's a lot of lip service around it, that level of empowerment is not there, wherein people, those who are actually undertaking and handling some part of this small unintentional mistakes and are privy to a lot of stuff, are not allowed to raise a flag. So one, from a sort of a policy level, from a definition level, how it is looked at organizationally or specific to industry verticals, and 2 is the empowerment bit, possibly would be able to negate a lot with regard to what quote unquote we call as scandals which are going to happen in the future.
Sure. So Mr. Biswas, my 2 cents on that is very simple, right? Leave the semantics of a scandal aside. A scandal is only that is reported, which is the other dimension to what a scandal could also be called, right? So just 2 cents on that. But thank you for your perspective.
My pleasure.
And your reflections. I promised each one of you I'm going to change the rules of the game as we move forward. Another surprise coming your way. Ms. Bajoria, a fantastic opportunity for you to ask a question to Mr. Ray on the future of work. Mr. Ray.
So, Mr. Ray, according to you, which skills would be what are the most important skills that would be required with the future of work, looking the way it is? And as HR heads, which way would we direct our employees and our workforce?
Now, skill to me have completely 2 separate boxes, I will say. Whenever we talk about critical skill, to me, even IIM graduates are replaceable. But for my industry, if I go to a typically say super tension jointer, that skill I will not get. So how to really preserve that skill and how to see that the organization will get that skill even tomorrow, that's a challenge. Because whatever your analytics, data, but so long those jobs will be required, these are extremely critical skills which are not really available in the market. The other thing what I would say, the skill in the other box, this managing uncertainty, somebody asked me that what would be the best strategy. To me, it is no strategy is the best strategy. Because I do not know the strategy what I will decide on will be applicable tomorrow. So, how much a person can handle diversity, uncertainties, that skill is important. So these are, I'm speaking from completely 2 different angles, but these are the typical skills I will at least look for.
Ms. Bajoria, happy with the answer? I'll come to you in a minute. Yes, Mr. Iyer. Can we have a mic right across to Mr. Iyer in the first row, please? Mr. Iyer, just wait for a minute. Let a mic come to you. We can't hear you at the back.
Hello. See, the same thing, the question which you asked, Mr. Ray. I asked the same question to one of the professor in Bombay. What are the skills? I think, we are always threatened by technology. We keep saying all the time that, technology see, people have great potential and we underplay most of the time. And now, what he said is, I think, it has stuck into my mind. What he says is, let the technology do its job. Let the people do, see, there are very many things which the people can do which the technology cannot do. What are those skills which we require maybe in the year 2020? It could be the one thing which is negotiation skills. I think you need to be extremely good in terms of negotiation skills. Number 2 is it could be decision-making skills. Number 3 is it could be conflict resolution skills. Number 4 is you need to really understand the people management. I think what Mr. Sohail said was in terms of emotions. I think emotions play a very big role. And if you can understand the people's emotions very well, I think you can take the best out of each people. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer. I'll just come to you, Mr. Kazim, in a bit. Dr. Narayan, where are you? I think you have a perspective. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must thank you for your...
Can you take the mic a little closer to yourself so everyone can hear you loud and clear?
Yeah, thank you so very much. Thank you. First of all, let me really congratulate you for your proficiency as an NLP practitioner, which is evident for conducting the programs in such an excellent manner. I may be very rather an odd man out in asking this question, because whatever discussion so far has taken place or it is taking place is in connection with the strategic and technological aspect of HR in the VUCA world, which is understood. But my question is based on certain developments in recent times. It has been very recently found based on a UN report that India is an unhappy nation. Happiness index, which UN says in terms of that, we have reduced ourselves. Now, the reason is, what...
Dr. Narayan, sorry, but in the paucity of time, can you come to your question straight?
Yes, yeah. My question is, what about the societal context of HR? We are talking about technology, we are talking about strategy. Why aren't you talking about the climate of the organization in terms of introducing the Octopack culture? Number 1. Number 2 is...
Sorry, but is that an allegation or is that a request?
That is not a request, that is a query.
It's a query, okay. And is it directed to someone specific?
No, all the experts are there. It's in general. Number 2, what about HR mainly stands for social security. And when we speak of a work organization, we speak of volume of people. Very recently, without naming, a very famous airlines is grounded with most of the staff unemployed. What about the social security aspect? When we are talking about technology, when we are talking about strategy, why we are missing the social ambience and the social security aspect?
Fantastic. Susam, I think you're the best person to take this head on. Why are we ignoring the social security aspect of being human?
Oh my God. Sorry, can you repeat the question, please? Once again, if you don't mind. Why are we? Because I was not prepared.
And that's
so
exactly why I went straight on.
No. I will make an attempt to answer. I may not answer it perfectly, but definitely I'll make an attempt.
Dr. Narayan, one more time, very, very crisply, your question to Susan.
Yes. We are talking about future, we are talking about VUCA. Without touching the social ambience and social security aspect, only concentrating on technology and strategy. Why this? And if it is, why not?
Why this and why not?
No, your first assumption is that when we are talking of VUCA or the future work or workspace or work life, I don't know why you are assuming that the social security part is being ignored, right? So I'm sure all of you would agree as organizations and over a period of time, be it the openness in terms of we being connected to internet, or we having access to all sorts of information today, we have evolved to a stage where the social part of people or society at large cannot be ignored, and people are extremely alert and aware. Maybe in certain pockets that would have got compromised, and that would have led to people being impacted adversely. But I can only say that the future is only going to be better, and if there is a technological advancement which is happening, which is impacting corporates and our work life, parallelly schemes, parallelly thinking is happening, which will definitely protect the human interest and the social aspect of it. So
Sure.
that's my view. I'm not sure if I'm able to answer your question.
Mr. Kazim had a point to make. Let him make that point, and then Ms. Bajoria will come back to you.
No, I was trying to kind of add on to the question of Vinita Bajoria. See, on skills, I think the question which you posed, see, we talk about a lot in terms of technology, in terms of skilling people and things like that. I have a different take on the subject. To my mind, if you look at it, in the world which we live, if there is a problem, there is a business case. In today's time, people are not buying products anymore. I think if you look at, people are buying experiences. And I think this is increasing every day. So whatever businesses in which we are in, and if you look at the customer touch point, be it from the sales perspective or a service perspective, or how do we engage, how do we respond, because customer is becoming very, very demanding in today's time. And if you want to have a window towards the skills requirement for the future, I think we need to do a close watch on how the customer behaviors are changing with technology, and what is the opportunity I can unleash in the businesses in which I am in, because we have moved to a space where the customer are experiencing the service. And I think each one of us are also doing the same thing with all the products which we own. And therefore, the focus should be more, irrespective of the organization we work in, look at outside, bring in that capability in the organization, and see how we can serve back that customer at a much higher level. If we keep doing this on a real-time basis, I think we are with the time, and as an organization, we are changing with the times. But if we lag into this approach, then we'll always talking about future, which is unknown, and I think then there's a gap is more. And in today's time, when the shelf life of the organization has dramatically reduced, the rate of obsolescence has also reduced, skill sets obsolescence rate has also increased. But I think this is one way to keep getting connected and see how progressively or proactively we bring this skill fast in the organization, because change is continuous and is happening every day, and it's not about future of tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Thank you.
Fantastic. Some very relevant points coming there. Adhiraj, wherever you are, your question, please.
To the panel, I've got only one question. We have been talking about technology, HR technology, digitalization, empowerment of digitalization, all of those things. I would only one question. What is your views, basically, on social augmenting with human capital management?
Sir, bouncer gaya. Thoda simple mein samjhaiye na. It's very complicated. Make it very simple for us.
Very simple. I'm making very simple. Social and human capital coalition. How it is going to do that? What kind of a role HR will play?
Anyone on the panel wants to take that question?
Okay, so I'll try and take a shot at it.
Thanks, Mehul.
I'll also try and bring in what earlier we were having discussions around the social element of technology. So let me try and give it a shot. So I'm going to share with you what we're trying to do when we talk about what Vinita mentioned about skill development with respect to the future of work. So how are we addressing that within our company? So we do understand the fact that most of the technology in terms of acceptability and delivery is going to be done going forward with a younger population, because they have the means and the ability to adapt to technology quicker than an aging population. Now, where does the social part of it come in? So we're not saying that we're going to have machines replace people. We're not going to say that we're going to have a distinct population of our people who are going to be made redundant. We're trying to attempt a way of how we can drive a balance. So what we have doing in our company, when I talk about these IoT or 4.0 projects, is we have the people who've been in the business for a longer period of time head projects and are the decision makers in those project teams, while all the execution is left to the younger population. So we've got like a bunch of 24-year-old engineers running IoT projects in our company, led by senior managers who've been in the business for a longer period of time. So we're trying to bridge that in experience versus execution. So as we all know that the power of a good business plan is not just strategy, but also implementation. So we're trying and bridge that, and that's how we're trying to augment, the social aspect of it, and yet driving technology. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, to an extent, yes, it did. But what I'm trying to, extrapolate or trying to focus is very clear. In what way organizations can get or do a coalition with the social aspects where it's related to people's upgradations? How will organization jump into it? Will coalesce with it? Is there the protocol which we need? Or every organization needs to have a protocol which will augment with the social development along with the organization, and need be, it is a very important point here to be noted by all the CHRs that we are talking about, or the VUCA. What we are talking about is how will it reflect economy?
Vanita and Mr. Ghosh both have the mic, so both are going to take a dig at it, and then finally, if there's anything else after both their points of view, we'll take it up offline. So,
See,
very crisp. Yeah.
By social, to your question and to the other the gentleman before you, the question he asked, see, the social aspect, the way I look at it is that social mobility has never been easier than it is today. It is today with all the technology at our disposal, it is much easier for people, with absolutely no background, no capital, to just, start a business and make it, big in no time at all. And the other part about businesses addressing the social needs, now HR leaders are emphasizing, like the HR influencer Pam Ross spoke about ROWE, result-oriented work experience, which means that you can manage your work time, your workplace, as long as you achieve results. So everybody, and of course, work from home is gaining ground slowly but surely, because, and it has been found out that workers have been much more productive, attrition rates are less, they are much happier, and incidentally, companies also save a huge amount on rental costs. So that, of course, is also working very well. So these are aspects which are actually taking into a lot, and of course, the gender biases are being completely, removed. So now the gender roles are completely changing within, organizations, within families, communities. So basically the work-life, integration is completely changing. And more than that, with these new algorithms, etc., which are becoming completely bias-free. The other parts, like earlier, there used to be so many different forms of discriminations, which can be completely eliminated, like I mentioned earlier, that by proper, AI coding, by proper, because everything, now the biases are caused by human beings. With the human element being taken away from decision making, and the whole process being completely, intelligently done by machines, where is the room for bias? So to that extent, of course, it would again be very, very merit-based. Whatever, whether it be promotions, whether it be opportunities, whether it be, employment opportunities. So everywhere I see that admissions into colleges. So I see that technology is democratizing education and workplace and life. It's making life much simpler.
Thanks, Sunita. Mr. Ghosh, anything incremental, 30 seconds.
So I would say that the way the organizations are contributing is through their CSR activities. I would just give a small example that we have tea gardens in Assam. Now earlier it used to be the agency houses who used to run. Now there are many small tea growers, and with the certifications of Rainforest Alliance and Trustee, the organizations are actually training the small tea growers to enhance their capability to address, and that's about sustainability.
Fantastic. That's a good point.
That's what we are doing. As an organization, most of the organizations are doing that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Adiraj seems to be a happy man now. Superb. Right. Fantastic. So I guess you got your answer, right? Superb. Thank you so much. Mr. Sahu, where are you? Yeah, great.
So my question is, how do you think technology adoption in with using a HR tool empower the organization, both in terms of employees as well as the HR manager?
Is it to any specific person that you want to address your question?
I think it's generic because the complete team is enabled to answer.
All right. So I'll request one person to volunteer to take that on, because then we'll try and take some more questions. The countdown is 15 minutes. We're trying to make the most of 15 minutes. I see multiple hands going up.
Okay.
So if the question is brief, the answer is brief, I'll be able to take a lot more questions. Otherwise, we'll go all around the bush.
Okay, if you want me to repeat, I can repeat that. Okay. So,
Please do so. Yeah.
How is the technology adoption of any HR tool? Probably you must be using some tool or the other in your organization to measure your employee performance, award them, reward them, all those stuff, or promote them. So how is this helping you to empower the HR? And the first question is that, and not only in terms of HR, but also the employees as well. So there can be more open, there can be more scientific way of reaching out to the HR, and HR also answering or addressing their queries.
Mr. Sahu, Rakhi is sitting right here. I think you should meet her after the session, and she'll tell you a lot more about what SAP does, which will actually help you. But anyways, one of the sponsors giving them some limelight, but panel, back to you.
Yeah, I'll just try to briefly answer your question. In the context of the organization I work for, that's Reliance Jio. Right from hiring, if you ask me, if I happen to be a candidate available in the market, I get into the site, the career portal, apply. If a job, that kind of suits me or fits me, commensurate to my experience and skill sets, and the entire thing flows. So the system in such a way takes care, right from the screening, the panel assessment, then the uploading of all the documents by the potential or the prospective candidate, till selection and rollout of the offer, the pre-employment health checkup and the BGV, the background verification. So everything happens so seamlessly and flawlessly. So here I see talent acquisition, I see technology completely playing a role, and it's flawless, I can say, right, vis-a-vis what it used to happen. I move on to the second part of it, the performance part of it. It's completely through SAP. So today, at the start of, so when I join as a candidate, so within 30 days I have to upload my goals, which gets approved by my manager, and periodically the evaluation also happens, my performance evaluation on a quarterly basis. So that the normal process happens. At the end of the year, I get rated, and there is a calibration which happens in the system, which is again linked to my compensation or allied things like promotion, etc. So that's again where technology is completely playing a role. Hardly any human intervention. Of course, certain things like talent management, where a qualitative discussion is supposed to happen, cannot be kind of built into technology, because there are views, there are opinions which has to be factored, because at the end of the day it's a career that we're discussing of. Yeah. So then move on to the other part, like payroll, compensation, your complete exit process is completely technology driven. So I think in a nutshell, if you ask me, those things which probably never needed human intervention has been dubbed into technology. So the error is minimized. There is high level of accuracy. Those parts will continue to be there where discussions, views, opinions, thought processes, etc. need to be captured. Those will continue as part of the HR function. Yeah.
All right. Rules of the game change again. A question beyond 30 seconds. I'm sorry, I will cut you there. Panelists, answer beyond 30 seconds. As rude as I may be, and you may hate me for it, but I will cut you beyond 30 seconds. So, brevity is the name of the game. Before I come to the questions in the audience, 30 seconds per panelist. We'll do it very quickly. I want to know from each one of you, can creativity be automated? And if so, will we feel that something is creative if it is only done by a human? Can creativity be automated? Is the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, will we feel that it is creative if it is only done by a human? 30 seconds per person, in no order, whoever wants to go first.
It's again, I will say, I do not have any binary answer to it. Technology can help more oriented and organized creativity, but there has to be an element of individuality also.
Creativity fundamentally is a human brain. That's it. Technology comes later.
I love the way they're sticking to brevity now. Lovely. Well done, panelists.
So I can say technology can enable my creativity, but creativity is a very natural form which embeds my childhood, my upbringing, my experiences, and a variety of things.
A lovely way
it's
to
more
augment the previous answers.
Creativity is a personal experience.
Lovely. Individual.
Definitely creativity, I would say, is a human trait. And for anything to be creative, there has to be a human intervention.
So it can't be automated.
Well, it can be, I mean, you can, train the machines with a lot of, creative,
If I had to push you to the wall, give me a yes or a no. I'm just trying to be Arnab
no,
Goswami. But
no.
No. Yes, Mehul.
No and yes.
Wonderful. Say more. 30 seconds more.
Okay, so I don't think it can be automated. I agree with the panel that there has to be a human touch to it.
Right.
And as far as, in terms of automation, can that drive creativity? I think it can help in the analysis part of it.
Yeah.
But still, it has to be a human who does most of the number crunching.
Fantastic. I love the 30-second rule. It's working. Right at the back, white shirt. Sorry, gentlemen. Please introduce yourself. And 30 seconds. If the question doesn't get completed, we get passed to the next person wanting to ask a question. Go for it.
This is Shumit Bhattacharya. Just a simple question. This VUCA world is not new, because by my 20 years of journey, I have seen that even the future of discussion and future of work, what we need to do is not new. The only new thing is that problem of abundance has been increased in the young generation, and also the speed. Within this given scenario, what is the specific skill by HR is required to engage the new generation employee?
Sorry, sir. Time over. Next question. I'm really sorry, but 30 seconds. Rules apply to all. Don't kill me after the session. We'll get you a chance to interact with them over lunch and you can ask your question.
Hello, I'm Nelson Chaco. My question is, should social diversity and technology disruption be eased out only if we don't run behind being the first to be clone others?
Susam is looking left, right, up and down.
So it's basically, we need not copy others. For example, if a product is coming, we take it. We are not analyzing what we need. The requirement need to be there. My question was like, technology need not be cloned what others are doing.
Okay, I'm sorry, but people didn't get your question in 30 seconds. Pick it up offline. Anyone? A very simple question, not for the heck of asking a question, but for the sheer reason to learn. Yes, sir. I'll come to you.
As per the World Happiness Report, India ranks 140 out of 157 countries. So does it have any impact on the future of work? Because Indians are dissatisfied nation, as he has mentioned.
Fantastic. Very specific, pointed question. Who wants to take it?
It does, because only a happy employee can get a happy customer to an organization.
That seemed like a very obvious answer. I hope you got your answer. Yes, let's come here. First table. Okay, let's go there and then we'll come here. Yes, ma'am.
So if you're discussing HR in this VUCA world, my question is, as practicing HR folks, what are we doing to propel and reward the act of unlearning and relearning?
Bahut achhe. Who wants to take it? Vinitha, you seem tempted.
No, definitely today's world is all about learning, unlearning and relearning.
What are we
And-
doing to reward? That was the question.
Yeah, we are, to reward is that the reward comes, isn't it an obvious reward? That to be relevant, you need to do it. Otherwise, you become obsolete. Because the way the world is changing, if you don't reskill, upskill, you are no longer relevant.
Relevance is the answer. Fantastic. Let's come to the first table. Gentleman in the blue shirt. Can I have the mic here, please, sir? You seem very lost.
Okay, just a simple question. I'm wondering if there is a HR manager at Uber. That's one. And
HR manager at?
Uber.
Uber, okay.
Okay. And what, how we plays his role? Plays his role.
How does he play his role? Is there an HR manager at Uber? And if yes, what role does he or she play? That's a figment of their imagination because none of them are with Uber, but yeah.
You know,
It's going to be
Uber-
a figment of their imagination.
Yeah,
But
as a company, Uber may not be having cars, but they have drivers. When you have drivers, you have human who would recruit them, and the background verification, whatever needs to be done, is being done.
Yeah.
So they would have a HR manager, definitely.
No, I'm saying that probably the drivers are not their employees.
Yeah, they're not. But then they represent Uber. So that's how the value systems are being carried by the drivers.
I think that's where the difference is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subcontractors, right?
See,
Mehul, can you give me the
basically-
same answer
I'll
in a
just-
creative way? Nadeem, 30 seconds.
I'll just
Go for it.
repeat it for the sake of repetition is that the role of the Uber HR guy is again to give a better experience
Yeah.
to everybody who gets into Uber. And how we train this person is very, very important.
As many 5 stars as possible, right? Mehul, same answer, creative way, humorous way. People are waiting for a laughter.
Okay, so if Uber doesn't have an HR manager, I think they should go out and get one. And
who wants to apply?
And if they have one, I think he should be replaced. He or she
Oh.
should be replaced.
Controversy at its best. Not bad. Yes, sir. 30 seconds. Fantastic. A startup fails. How much is HR responsible? Startup, organization, any established organization. Fantastic. More so applied to startups than established organizations because established organizations won't fail as fast as a startup, but Jet Airways being.
I think I'll come back to what Sahil said. I just caught 5 minutes of his time when he was up on stage. I think businesses who generally tend to fail are those who don't acknowledge HR to be part of the business strategy. And if they don't have a CHRO in as part of the XCOM, those businesses tend to slide quicker than most of them.
बोल दिया ना उसने.
So he said that CHR has not been engaged in the process. So he does not have.
And what did he imply?
But did the CHRO take any initiative?
I'm repeating my question. What did he imply? Catch up with him offline. He'll tell you what he implied. Okay. Yes, sir, quickly. Process of foregoing intuitive skills that we are good as Indians.
See, intuition is a part of every decision that we make. Every decision that we make, we always intuitively think, and then we draw on whatever our experiences have been, our learnings have been. They are always coupled with intuition in order to solve a particular problem. So definitely intuition is a very important part of decision making. No, analytics is not overriding that because that's where the human aspect comes in. You get all the data, the correct data, and the analysis as presented, and then you use your intuition to draw upon that and make the correct decision.
Two words mutually exclusive, analytics and intuition. One override the other eventually. Yes, ma'am. Shout, 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 we'll hear you. Yeah, you have the mic with you.
So we are talking about the future of work. I want to understand how are we envisioning the future performance management system which can cater to this, new age workforce.
Fantastic. How will PMS change? Mr. Ray takes the mic
The best thing,
Nadeem, sorry, please, no, yours as well.
the best PMS would be that you do your own PMS.
Wow. I'm in the driver's seat for my own performance. Lovely. Yes, Nadeem.
The PMS annually will go through the rows and it will be online maybe every month, every quarter, how you perform. So that's where I see PMS moving.
Regular performance conversation habits. Fantastic. I have exactly 60 seconds to go. One last question. Yes, sir. Quick. Lady, I'll come to you as well. Will gig obsolete jobs? Yes, no?
It's actually creating more jobs. The
Creating
gig
more
economy
jobs.
is creating more
Fantastic. So something you want to add?
Yeah, a lot of freelancing jobs are, jobs are becoming freelancing today. So I may not be a regular employee, but I'm available at any point of time. You can call me. So not necessarily technology is replacing jobs. So in fact, it is producing more and more.
Superb. Yes, ma'am. The final word is yours.
Entirely across all level in this future of work?
Hiring process automated across all levels, future of work. Yes,
Do you
no?
think?
Yeah, it's in fact, it is automated right now.
No, but how come you think? Because if we are doing a leadership hiring or say executive hiring, then in that case, human emotion need to be judged. So is it possible entirely, or
End to end across
end-to-end
levels?
hiring process?
No,
is
so if you
automated?
heard me when I answered the previous question, I said there is an assessment which happens. So someone meets the prospective candidate, captures his comments. So that can't be eliminated.
Yeah.
Can't be. Mr. Ghosh?
Yeah.
The
The leadership hiring would definitely need human intervention, right? Your analytics would help you to take a decision, but that human intervention is very much required.
Fantastic. I'm just going to do one last question as a rapid fire on the panel before we bring this to a close. I'm sorry I can't take more questions. We can take them up offline as we have lunch. But the lady and the gentleman on the dais, the final question is up here for you. We've already started automating congratulation messages on LinkedIn, right? How much effort can you remove from a gesture before it becomes meaningless? I'll repeat the question. We are already in the age where congratulation messages, work anniversary, congratulations, automate ho gaya hai, malum hai. The question is, how much effort can you remove from a gesture before it becomes meaningless? Not a rapid fire question, I know, but it is VUCA. So let's bring it on. And the brains of the country are thinking, and the first man picks the mic up. Go for it, sir.
Let me attempt to answer. I think the movement very soon will be moving away from technology touch to human touch. I think that's what will come back.
It will come back, a complete circle all over again?
Yes.
Fantastic. Mr. Ray.
My reply to your question in a question.
Wonderful. I knew that was coming.
Do you really need it?
Do I really need it? Superb. Susam.
It will come back.
It will come back.
It will come back.
A different answer, Mr. Ghosh. Come on, I know you're nodding your head. You can do better. Come on.
No, I think there would be a personalized experience. Personalized response would be there. It cannot be automated.
Can't be automated?
Can't be automated.
I feel it'll be automated and people will accept it as the new norm.
And that's woman power coming up right here in the middle for you. Mehul, over to you.
I think currently it is tending towards automation, but I think it's going to come back. It's going to reverse this cycle because people are figuring it out that it's automated. And they
Fantastic.
need that acknowledgement on a personal basis.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for a fantastic panel right here. I think it wasn't easy. I was the bad cop. They were the good cops. We tried to do our best. I hope you found some merit and some kind of learning in your time that you invested with us today. Thank you, each one panelist. Sincere apologies for any kind of instance where I put you in a spot. but it was purely incidental
But I
and
would-
automated.
But I would request the audience to give a huge round of applause to Sahil for conducting a wonderful discussion.
Well, thank you so much to all the panelists over here for this wonderful session which we had. As a token of our gratitude, we would like to present mementos to our esteemed panelist and chairperson. May I now request Dr. Ajit Varvankar from HRFI Managing Committee team to present a memento to Mr. Gautam Ray, please. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for this very, very interactive and fun-filled panel discussion. Thank you, sir. May I now request Mr. Rao Saheb Kangane, Vice President HR Kotak Mahindra Bank and member of Managing Committee Team HR Federation of India to present a memento to Mr. Nadeem Kazim. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again. May I now request Mr. Subramaniam Iyer from HRFI Managing Committee Team to present a memento to Mr. Susom Mishra. I would request you to kindly keep applauding. And may I now request Mr. Bismay Mishra from HRFI Managing Committee Team to present a memento to Mr. Ramkrishna Ghosh. May I now request Mr. K.K. Mahapatra, Organizing Secretary and Head Infocom ABP Private Limited, to present the memento to Ms. Vinita Bajoria. So can I also request you to kindly, Mr. Mahapatra, may I also request you to kindly present the memento to Mr. Mehul Mohanka. And finally, may I please request Mr. Vijay Deshpande to kindly present the memento to our moderator for the session, Mr. Sahil Nair. May I now please request all of you to kindly stand up for a group photo opportunity right now. I do hope all the delegates have filled up the feedback forms. Your response to our questions in the feedback form is very, very important to us. We will collect the same from you, or you can hand over the same to our representatives moving around in the hall itself. May I now request Mr. Prashant Patil from the HRFI Managing Committee team to propose the vote of thanks and the closing remarks. A round of applause for him onto the stage.
Thank you. I'll take not more than 2 minutes. First of all, I would like to thank all of you present here. Be present here for a group photograph that will be taken here, so thanks for that. Be present here for the networking and lunch that we have after this, so thanks for that. And most important, the critical, I would like to thank Infocom HR for this, for organizing this. The principal partner, SAP Success Factors, and SEMA, along with the Om Dayal group of institutions for sponsoring the whole event. Thank you all for being present here on a Saturday. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
I think sorry guys, 1 second. I think no event is complete without the audience. People have told me I'm reasonably good at it, which is taking a selfie with all of you. So if you can all just come slightly closer, we'll get everyone captured in the room. So if all of you all can come closer, we'll take a historic, memorable moment of everyone who committed their time on a Saturday for an HRFI Infocom session, and we'll take a selfie together. You can just come up close, everyone, to this side of the room. We can get the TVs out so we don't damage anyone, neither the TVs. Careful. Huh? All right, everyone at the back, come slightly ahead. Ma'am, why don't you also join in? Come. Come, please. PP, come. Sir, please come. All right, everyone. Thank you.
All right, and with that very, very fun selfie over here, may I now request all our esteemed speakers to kindly step up on the stage for a final photo opportunity here. Requesting all our esteemed speakers to be on the stage for a final photo opportunity.